mwana beka hedwa English short. Make. Hata Latin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Jambo. I'm sure all of you now know the word jambo. So jambo me back. Kindly take your seats, please. We would like to commence the program in a few minutes. So we'll kindly request you, those who are still standing, to take your seats. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me appreciate the Turumbete drummers, a homegrown team of drummers and dancers. Thank you, Turumbete. We would also like to thank Anklung and the Girls Chorale of Kenya, who entertained us earlier. The Anklung, ladies and gentlemen, is a traditional Indonesian music instrument made out of bamboo. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, would you kindly take your seats? Kindly take your seats, please. As I was saying, the Anklung is a bamboo music instrument originating in Indonesia. The Girls Chorale of Kenya started playing that instrument in 2016, introducing a new blend of Anklung and traditional African sounds. The Anklung is now listed as a UNESCO World Intangible Heritage, a decision which was taken in Nairobi in 2010. How appropriate it is that today we are witnessing the return of the Anklung to Nairobi, but this time not in the hands of Indonesian players, but in the hands of Kenyan players. As Dito said to me, the Anklung is a love letter from Indonesia to Kenya and to the world. Please give them a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we, the UN Habitat family, could not find a better way of welcoming you to the heart of Africa, to the cradle of mankind, than through the common language of music, the language that unites all humanity. It is our earnest desire and hope to see the throbbing harmony and spirit of African drums reverberate in all your hearts all week long as you deliberate, negotiate, and draw up resolutions that will determine the future of urbanization and affect the future of humanity in cities and human settlements around the world. My name is James Ohio, a staff member of UN Habitat. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, members of all government delegations here present, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Kenyan and international media, particularly our host broadcaster, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, who will be streaming the events live all day long and on Wednesday, beyond Kenya's borders. We thank you, KBC. Our well-wishers, partners, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, UN Habitat is back. Ladies and gentlemen, I said UN Habitat is back. Thank you. On behalf of the Executive Director and the UN Habitat family, it is my very distinguished pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to Kenya, to Gigiri, and to this, the first meeting of the first session of the Assembly of the United Nations Human Settlements Program. We are especially grateful to His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and the government of Kenya, not only for the welcome to all delegations to this August Assembly, but also for graciously hosting the global headquarters of UN Habitat for the past 43 years. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to be your moderator for the fun part of our program this morning. However, to lead us through the heavy lifting, which is the legislative part of the program, I will happily defer to one better versed in these matters than I. She has been in the UN Habitat family for barely 14 months, But it has been 14 months for us in the family of continuous infusion with what she fondly calls vitamin P for passion. You will notice as you interact with the family members of UN Habitat that we are very different from the last time you visited. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Director General of the United Nations Office in Nairobi, and Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program. Please join me in welcoming Madam Maimuna Maud Sharif. Karibu mama.
Thank you, James. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, can I have all delegates be seated, please, because we would like to start our official meeting. Those delegates at the back, can you find your seat, please? Okay. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the opening meeting of the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly is now convened solely for the purpose of electing the President of the United Nations Habitat Assembly. Good morning, distinguished delegates. I welcome you to this historic moment, which is the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly, and I know many of you have been here for some days, and some of you have just arrived. All the same, I wish you a very good stay in this beautiful country. Distinguished delegates, you would recall that pursuant to Resolution 73/239 of 20th December 2018, the General Assembly welcomed the work of the open-ended working group established by the Committee of Permanent Representative to United Nations Habitat, pursuant to Resolution 72/226, as well as its report, and endorse the finding and recommendation on changing the governance structure of UN Habitat. In that same resolution, the General Assembly also decided to dissolve the Governing Council of UN Habitat as a subsidiary organ of the Governing Council of the General Assembly and to replace it with the UN Habitat Assembly. In line with the findings and recommendations of the open-ended working group contained in document 73/726 of 4th February 2019, the General Assembly in Resolution 73/239 decided that the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly will be held in May 2019, building upon the work carried out towards the 27th session of the Governing Council, and further that this shall take effect upon commencement of the first session. Accordingly, I am convening this first meeting of the session for you member states to elect the President of the UN Habitat Assembly. The rest of the officers will be elected later. I understand that there has been an agreement to conduct this particular election using the rules of procedure of the General Assembly of the United Nations pending the adoption of the rules of procedure of the UN Habitat Assembly. Do I hear any objection? No? It is so decided. Distinguished delegates, I understand it has been agreed that the presidency of the UN Habitat Assembly will come from the group of Latin America and Caribbean states, and I also understand that there is a general agreement to conduct the election of the president of the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly as our first term, as our first item. This means that we begin with agenda item 2, which is the election of the president of the UN Habitat Assembly. Is that the general understanding? I hear no objection. It is so decided. I am informed that the nomination of Her Excellency Madam Marta Delgado Peralta, Undersecretary of Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights by the Latin America and Caribbean Group of States of Mexico. In the absence of any other nomination, do I take it that there is an agreement to elect Madam Marta Delgado Peralta, President of the first session of UN Habitat Assembly by acclamation? It's so decided. On behalf of all delegations, I extend warm congratulations to the elected first president of the UN Habitat Assembly and wish her all the best as she drives the agenda of the UN Habitat Assembly to a successful and historic outcome. Here, I invite Her Excellency to the rostrum and to assume her function as President. So I hand over the Assembly to Madam President.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Maimunat I thank you all. Thank you for supporting our candidacy and our presidency. This is a historical moment for Mexico and also for multilateral institutions. We will adjourn in order to receive the President of Kenya. So we will have this recess in order to welcome him.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join in applause again one more time to congratulate Madam President. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, as the President, the newly elected President of the United Nations Human Settlements Program Assembly and the Director General of UNEP proceed to welcome the President, who would like to walk you through the 43-year history of UN Habitat, where we came from and where we are today, from Vancouver to Nairobi, from the United Nations Center for Human Settlements to the United Nations Human Settlements Program. Please welcome to a brief video show of how we got here. Thank you. That is how we got here. Over the next 1 week, we trust that in your deliberations, you will set us on an even steeper trajectory to success. Music truly unites humanity, ladies and gentlemen. A 16-year-old Indigenous Canadian girl has recorded a cover of Blackbird, a song many of you will remember was played by the Beatles, entirely in her native language, which is called Mi'kmaq. I believe I got it right. And she says she hopes that one day she will release a full album in her people's language. Those lyrics kind of make me feel more hopeful, more inspired to learn my language more than I already know, and to show non-Mi'kmaq people the beauty of the song in our language, she says. I know it's just like a little cover, but in our language, it's really beautiful. And it just makes a big impact. Listeners are definitely feeling the impact. The cover has been viewed more than 30,000 times on YouTube since it was uploaded by the Alison Bernard Memorial High School to mark the United Nations International Year of Indigenous Languages. After it aired on CBC's radio As It Happens program, dozens of listeners wrote in to express how deeply moved they were by Stephen's haunting voice and the beauty of the Mi'kmaq lyrics. I'm glad that it gave them kind of a new view on music, Stephen said, of the reception. Our language is such a beautiful thing, and not a lot of people hear it. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, direct from Eskasoni, Nova Scotia, the other side of the world in Canada, Emma Stevens. Emma, are you in the house? Take it away, girl.
Kwe, Nindelos Yama Stevens, Akdalea Oyasa Sohonik Mi'kmaq, Canada. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma Stevens, and I'm truly honored to be invited here today to speak and perform for you all at this incredible event here in this beautiful country of Kenya. This is my first time being abroad, and I don't think that I can possibly feel more welcomed. I would like to sincerely thank the UN for this incredible honor in my language, Mi'kmaq. We say the word walalio to say thank you to the group of people, so walalio to everyone here today from the bottom of my heart. My home is the community of Eskasoni First Nation on an island of Unama'ki in Nova Scotia, Canada. Like many places in the world today, being an Indigenous person in Canada is not without its challenges. Even in a modern democratic country like Canada, Indigenous people are still fighting for equality, justice, and reconciliation. In the short time I have here today, I would like to speak to you about two important things that affect Indigenous Canadians that are near and dear to my heart. First, I would like to take a moment to tell you about the dress that I am wearing today. This dress is a traditional Mi'kmaq women's ribbon dress. The ribbons are the color of fire because of the passion I feel for my culture, language, and heritage. The color red also represents the movement we have in Canada called the Red Dress Movement, which seeks to bring attention to the missing and murdered Indigenous women. It saddens me to say that about 4,000 Indigenous women in my country have gone missing or were murdered since 1970s, and many of these crimes have gone unsolved. I wear this traditional Mi'kmaq ribbons dress in red to honor these women and girls and to pay tribute to the loved ones they have lost, their sisters, daughters, and mothers. For these women and girls, and for you, I would like to sing you a song that is very sacred to the Mi'kmaq Honor Song. If you are able, can you please stand? Okay. For the second issue, I would like to talk about the rapid loss of my native language, Mi'kmaq. Like many Indigenous languages around the world, Mi'kmaq is endangered. Today, there are less than 10,000 people left in the entire world who can speak Mi'kmaq, and this number is rapidly in decline. It saddens me to say that it is believed that within 2 generations, Mi'kmaq is predicted to be lost forever, unless we all come together, join hands, and work together to help save it. Other dying languages, of course, too, but it is very likely that people like me are not too distant in the future will have no one to speak to in languages that our ancestors have viewed the world through for thousands of years. With it being the UN International Year of Indigenous Languages, I would like to sing a song for you in Mi'kmaq that you all may know. My classmates, teachers, and I worked together to translate and record this song to help bring awareness to the important movement. I hope you like it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Emma, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in another round of applause for that awesome performance by this young lady who says the youth can't change the world. She's only 16. Yes, they can. Emma was accompanied by her sister, Giselle. Giselle, are you in the house? Should just take a bow. And of course, she was performing with Terrence. There's 3 of them who arrived all the way from Nova Scotia only last night. Thank you so very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, in the course of the next 1 week, we have a number of fun events planned for you. The most important one of them is for you to participate in designing the public spaces in the Gigiri complex. However, before we get to that, we'd like to invite you in the course of the day to visit our exhibitions. We have set up 2 exhibitions for you. One, covering 43 years of milestones of innovations, of major projects and programs that UN Habitat has run and that have made an impact on the lives of the people that we work for. The other is futuristic, where we want to go from here. For today, we have been reborn. This is the new UN Habitat. So, to talk you through the process of participating in designing the public space in Gigiri, I'd like to invite someone who has a great passion for participatory work. She is an urban planner, Indian-born, and she leads UN Habitat's most vibrant branch. Those are her words, not mine, just in case colleagues get on my case. The Urban Planning and Design Branch. She never hesitates to stand for what is right. She's a passionate advocate of broad-based inclusion, meaningful participation, and transformative partnerships in everything we do. Please put your hands together and welcome Shipra Narang Suri. Karibu, Shipra.
We'll start with a little video and then I'll speak. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the new UN Habitat. This assembly marks a new chapter in UN Habitat's history, a new way of looking at cities, a new approach to participation and partnership in designing, building, and managing cities and human settlements, a whole new way of doing business. Welcome again. We've always talked about how more than 50% of the world's population now lives in cities. But last year, another important milestone was also reached, perhaps one that we may not all be aware of. More than 50% of the world's population is now connected to the internet. So the world we live in now is both urban and digital, as can be seen from the ubiquitous smartphones, the changing nature of work, leisure, travel, and how data fuels the new digital economy. Cities have always been laboratories of technological innovation and have been transformed by innovation. The elevator changed how high we could build. The automobile changed how far we could travel. Together, these two innovations fundamentally shaped how our cities look today, for better or for worse. The coming technology revolution, drones, autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, is likely to have the same impact. The United Nations, including UN Habitat, the new UN Habitat, is taking this very seriously. The Secretary General has made addressing the impacts that new technologies are having on society one of his top 5 priorities this year. The new urban agenda also calls on member states to adopt a smart cities approach and to apply citizen-centric digital governance to improve how cities are planned, managed, and governed. One of the arenas where UN Habitat has successfully deployed technology is in our work on public space. Now, we all know how important public space is to our quality of life and our well-being. We may not be able to express it in technical language, but we know when we feel safe in a public space, when we feel comfortable in it at any time of the day or night. When we look for a house, we check how close it is to a well-maintained, accessible public space that we can reach easily, where our children and grandchildren can play safely, where we can meet our neighbors or go for a jog. We also know that having green, open public spaces close to where we live will mean cooler temperature, better air quality, better biodiversity. And public spaces enshrined in the SDGs. SDG 11.7 commits us all to providing universal access to public space by 2030. The new urban agenda reinforces that commitment. But just like we all know what a public space looks like, we also all have opinions about what to do when it doesn't look the way we want it to look. Oh, the street is nice, I wish it was better lit. Or this park is nice, but I can't go with the stroller because it has 2 steps. Or I wish there was some more street furniture. This is a very nice square. But very often we don't know where to go, who to speak to, how to share our ideas and opinions, how to talk to planners in their language. This is where UN Habitat's Global Public Space Program comes in. With the support of Mojang, Microsoft, and the Block by Block Foundation, UN Habitat has used the video game Minecraft to revolutionize and democratize stakeholder participation in public space design in over 40 countries. All of those countries are present in the room today. Did you know that Minecraft is now the biggest video game in history with over 180 million copies sold? Did you also know that over 90 million people play Minecraft every month? Our use of Minecraft demonstrates what is possible when different stakeholders, UN Habitat, civil society, cities, people, and the private sector come together to achieve change. Thanks to technology, everyone from a 7-year-old in an inner city slum to a 68-year-old grandmother who never went to school can now influence how their public space is designed, how accessible it is, what amenities it has, etc. So now we come to the fun part. Even if you've never played Minecraft, this week you will have many opportunities to try your hand at it. There is a place in the exhibition where you can go and play Minecraft. But we're starting right now, in this room. We need your help in redesigning some of the public spaces here in the UN compound in Gigiri. You would agree that our compound, though absolutely beautiful, is a little dull. It needs a bit of livening up, except in weeks like this when it's very lively. So we have identified 4 very important people to help us get creative, using Minecraft, of course. As they play the game, we will, here in this corner, we will intermittently zoom in to see what's happening, and then at the end, we will ask them about their experience. If you don't want to see that on the screen and you want to sort of go and see what they're doing, you're welcome to do that too. May I now invite our 4 volunteers. Her Excellency, Madam Laurie Dando, Ambassador of the United States and Permanent Representative of UN Habitat to Permanent Representative to UN Habitat and UNEP. Please. Her Excellency, Madam Vivian Nain Kuma, Ambassador of Cameroon and Perm Rep to UN Habitat and UNEP. His Excellency, Mr. Sebastian Gill, Deputy Perm Rep of the EU to UN Habitat and UNEP. And Ms. Nayoka Martinez Backstrom, Thematic Coordinator for Urban Development at SIDA from Sweden. Please. So others who are interested are welcome to join us around the gaming tables, which are here. But there will be more gaming tables upstairs in the exhibition area throughout the week. When you want to take a break from serious business, you're welcome to go and play some Minecraft. Our public space team is around to take you through it and to guide, support, and assist. Thank you. And while the Minecrafters redesign our common spaces here in Gigiri, I will hand back to James, Ohio, to take you through the rest of the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, Shipra. Wow. All right. Get to work, folks. We'll be holding you accountable. At the end of the week, we expect you to report back on the new designs for public space on the Gigiri complex. Innovation, ladies and gentlemen, goes all the way up to the top in the UN system. Our theme, Innovation for a Better Future, is one that the Chief Executives Board of the United Nations takes to heart. It's our pleasure now to welcome you to view a 2-minute video, leaving no one behind, not even the CEB, on innovation. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. The video from the CEB will be shown after the process that's going on in designing. Thank you. Now we'll have a piece from the Anklung and Kenya Girls Chorale. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, has entered the Gigiri complex from the main entrance of UN Habitat. We are cutting to the live feed as the music continues. A round of applause to His Excellency, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going back to the work that's been going on public space design, and I would like to hand over to Shipra. Shipra, over to you. Mic for Shipra, please.
I focused on putting more.
Thank you, Shipra. Thank you very much to our brave volunteers for the work that they've done this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and thank the Anklung and Kenya Choral, Kenya Girls Choral, Terumbete, and everyone. Emma Stevens, thank you very much indeed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier on, it's been my pleasure to walk you through the fun part of the program. Now we get to the heavy lifting. But at the end of the week, find some time to enjoy the flora and fauna of Kenya and to meet the beautiful and warm people of our country. Thank you very much once again. Karibuni sana and have a wonderful week. I'd like now to hand over to Mike. Mike, would you like to take over and
Thank you so much, our earlier session moderator, for the candid work you've done unto us. I take cognizance and appreciate the presence of all the delegates, members of Diplomatic Corps, and the Excellency, the ambassadors who are present with us, all the ministers, and representative of governments. We welcome you to our country, Kenya. We welcome you to Gingiri, UN Complex, headquarters in Nairobi. We are privileged that our principal guest is already with us, His Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of Defense Forces. He will be joining us any moment from now. So I seek the indulgence of all of us who are standing with no necessary reason to stand. Kindly take your seats. For those who are standing and there's a position where you can sit, kindly get a position and sit. I'll seek indulgence that when the president and his entourage will be joining us, we'll be upstanding. And as a gesture of being present and happy to be hosted here in Kenya, we applaud His Excellency, the president and the entourage. Once they get to the main dais, we'll hand over the program to our first president to take us through the program. So I seek the indulgence of all of us who are standing. Kindly get a place and sit. If it's not necessary for you to stand. If allowed in the meantime, maybe we can have an interlude as we wait for their excellencies.
Fine. Innovation starts with people.
Creating the space to think, fail, try, and try again.
gentlemen, may we be upstanding for His Excellency the President. A round of applause for His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. May we applaud His Excellency the President with a round of applause. A clap for His Excellency the President. With the permission of Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, may we be seated. Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President of the UN Habitat Assembly, Mr. Marta Delgado, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, allow me to invite the President of the UN Habitat Assembly to make his welcoming remarks. Welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, sorry.
Thank you very much. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Mrs. Maimuna Mod Sharif, Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program and Acting Director General of the United Nations Office at Nairobi, Mrs. Joyce Msuya, Acting Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program, Excellencies and distinguished delegates. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to all the states for the great privilege and distinction they have bestowed upon my country, Mexico, by electing me President of the UN Habitat Assembly. I am indeed honored and deeply indebted to all of you for the trust and confidence you have put on me, and you can be assured that I will do my best with your assistance and cooperation to work towards the advancement of the noble objectives outlined in the strategic plan of UN Habitat, the SDGs, and the 2030 Agenda for Development of the new urban agenda as means through which we all commit to ensure that all human settlements, including rural and urban, exuberate the dignity of human existence in this increasingly urbanizing world. Your Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta, I wish to take this opportunity to thank you and the people of Kenya for the warm welcome that you have extended to us and the other delegates since our arrival. It is an extraordinary opportunity to recognize the legendary Kenyan hospitality. You have indeed a very beautiful country. Allow me also to thank Your Excellency for accepting to grace this inaugural session of the UN Habitat Assembly. I wish to also express my gratitude to the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Madame Maimuna Mod Sharif, for her kind words addressed to me when I was elected this morning, and I do also want to recognize your extraordinary leadership for UN Habitat and all the countries that have been supported by you during your mandate. Thank you very much, Mrs. Maimuna. Excellencies, distinguished delegate, welcome to this session of the UN Habitat Assembly. I am greatly privileged and honored to be part of this historic moment, for this is the first ever session of the UN Habitat Assembly. The theme, Innovation for a Better Quality of Life in Cities and Communities, resonates well with recent urbanization trends that project that 68% of the world population will live in cities by 2050. These trends call for collective efforts to be innovative and bold in the way we approach and implement urban growth, so that tomorrow's cities provide opportunities and better living conditions for all. It is my sincere belief that, handled properly, urbanization has the potential to create opportunities for a better life, provide a pathway to get out of poverty, inequality, and exclusion, and act as an engine for economic growth. We must build on the opportunities offered by the UN Habitat Assembly to adopt policies that will continue to advance sustainable urban development as a driver of social inclusion, economic growth, and environmental protection. I want to warmly thank the group of Latin America and the Caribbean states for supporting Mexico to lead this historic first session assembly of the UN Habitat. Mexico's government now is very committed with this organization. The urban now is our priority. I am greatly honored to represent Mexico's president and our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Marcelo Ebrard. Our strong commitment is shown though making urban development our third budgetary priority right now, and we will invest more than $10 billion in our urban development in the next 5 years. So UN Habitat is key for these projects, and we believe it is the cornerstone for sustainable development goals to leave no one behind. Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the honor and pleasure to invite the Acting Director of the UNEP, Madame Maimouna Mott Sharif, to deliver a statement from the Secretary General of the United Nations. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Madam President. His Excellency, the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, Ms. Joyce, Acting Director of United Nations Environment Programme, delegates, Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning. Habariya usubuhi. In my capacity as Acting Director General of the United Nations Office at Nairobi, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to UNON, United Nations Office of Nairobi, for the first ever assembly of the United Nations Human Settlement Program. Allow me to thank you, Your Excellency, President Kenyatta, for being with us this morning for the opening of this assembly. Your presence here today is a strong manifestation of the close partnership between Kenya and the United Nations organization. This historic first UN Habitat Assembly is taking place at a critical time for the United Nations as the organization implements global management reforms aims at improving the delivery of efficient, accountable, and cost-effective services. UNON, as a major service provider, is playing its part in these reform efforts and will continue to support UN Habitat as it plays a leading role in implementing the new urban agenda towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is also an important time for the Nairobi duty station, which is a vital hub for the organization's operations and activities and remain the only United Nations headquarters in the developing world. The decision of the United Nations General Assembly to replace the previous Governing Council with the Universal UN Habitat Assembly is a further indication of the growing relevance of Nairobi as a global UN center, for where an increasing number of UN entities are working to advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in Kenya, in the region, and around the world. That is why we are now moving forward with once-in-a-generation renovations to this beautiful UN compound. I am pleased that the UN General Assembly has already approved funding for UNON to proceed with the replacement of blocks A through J, the first offices constructed on this compound over 40 years ago. The UN General Assembly has also requested us to provide information regarding possible renovation work aimed at addressing the conditions and limited capacity of UNON's conference facility for presentation to the upcoming 74th session of the General Assembly. As the global seat, not only of UN Habitat, but also of the UN Environment Programme, we are also making effort to lead by example and walk the talk in terms of becoming a more environmentally friendly compound. Last year, for example, UNON launched a waste collection and sorting station with a view of reducing landfill waste generated from this compound and increasing recycling. UNON also became the first UN headquarters in the world to eliminate the sale of the single-use plastic at our cafeterias. And now, Excellencies, I would like to take this opportunity to again express my appreciation to the government of Kenya for its steadfast support to the United Nations present in Kenya as a whole. And now, I have the honor of requesting your attention as we screen the video message of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to this assembly. Thank you. Asante sana.
I'm pleased to lead this first Universal Assembly of UN Habitat as we discuss ways to improve the quality of life in cities and communities. Your gathering comes at an important juncture. About 60% of the urban infrastructure needed by 2030 is yet to be built. That creates great opportunities. Well-planned and managed cities can steer us towards inclusive growth and sustainable low-emission development. At the same time, rapid and unplanned urbanization can generate severe problems such as pollution, crime, inequality, disease, vulnerability to disasters, and the lack of affordable housing. Cities also account for about 70% of harmful emissions worldwide. These challenges can be overcome. I urge you to discuss ambitious and concrete solutions because together we can develop the path to a sustainable urban future. Thank you.
I thank Madame Sharif for delivering the statement of Secretary General of the United Nations. On behalf of all delegates, I would like to thank the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his inspiring statement. I would now like to invite Madame Joyce Msuya, Acting Executive Director of the UNEP, as a sister organization, also headquartered here in Nairobi, to deliver her statement.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Your Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Marta Delgado Peralta, Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights of Mexico and President of the UN Habitat Bureau, my sister, UN Habitat Executive Director, Madam Maimouna Maud Sharif, Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly honored on behalf of the UN Environment Program family to join all of you at this historic moment, the opening of the first ever UN Habitat Assembly. Hongera sana, Maimuna, and the Habitat Assembly, and for the guests, karibuni sana, Nairobi, and to the beautiful country of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of our planet is an urban one. More than 70% of the world's population will live in cities by 2050, and resource requirements of an urban world could double in the same period of time. Meanwhile, the overwhelming majority of people living in cities do not breathe clean air, and nearly 1 billion people could live in cities with perennial water shortages in 2050. Despite the daunting challenges, this provides us with enormous opportunities to make a difference. We need to get our cities right to fuel green and sustainable growth, protect the environment, ensure equality for all, and keep the social fabric of our communities intact. The organization of this assembly is a welcome and timely sign of the importance of the member states, civil society, partners, and the UN system to place resilience, low carbon, and just cities on the agenda to improve the quality of life for the residents. Transformations are not easy, but I believe in deliberations this week, and as we continue on to the Secretary General's Climate Action Summit in September, we should be reminded of a Kiswahili saying, and I quote, "Mazingira ni chanzo cha kufuzu," end of quote, which means the environment is the beginning of success, and this is a success. So with that in mind, please allow me to share 5 ideas of opportunities where we can make a difference together. First, we need to build in circularity into the DNA of our urban systems. This means fundamentally rethinking how our cities function, from waste disposal to clean mobility to urban planning. Smart and sustainable urban planning represents a tremendous opportunity to reduce the strain we put on the planet, while also improving the quality of the people, especially in low-income countries. This will account for 90% of the predicted urban growth. Adapting circularity and resource efficiency could also reduce greenhouse gas emissions in some sectors up to 99%, while decreasing the cost associated with achieving the targets of the Paris Agreement. Second, housing can no longer be viewed through the lens of affordability alone. The historic sprawl of our cities that we see almost everywhere, which expand by 2% every year, can no longer continue, or else we run the risk of putting agricultural land and food supplies at risk. It is here that innovation can play a central role. It can help reduce operating costs, improve comfort, and reduce the strain on resources. What is sustainable must be affordable. Third, the quest for affordable, sustainable housing should be accompanied by urgent need for clean cooling. Indeed, the energy consumption of the cooling and heating sectors could be 33 times greater by the end of the century. We must be ready to meet the growing demand for cooling with smart, accessible technologies that improves people's lives without harming the planet. Fourth, the natural world and the urban world must go hand in hand. The two are not mutually exclusive. Our cities have grown at the expense of nature. Our financial accounts must acknowledge the value of our forests, oceans, and other natural capital. Environmental considerations should be guiding our infrastructure decisions. Over the next 15 years, nations will need to build US $93 trillion worth of low-emission, climate-resilient infrastructure to meet the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. Again, this is a tremendous opportunity for public, private, and civil society to make a difference. 5, capacities are critical. We must build the capacity of local governments to implement this vision of a sustainable urban future, including integrating circularity in design or in becoming more resource efficient. Cities have proven their capacity to innovate and act, for example, in the hundreds of climate commitments taken at subnational level in recent years, including the country we are in here in Kenya. We are excited at the UN because multiple UN agencies and the outcomes of these assemblies are committing ourselves to delivering as one UN. I very much welcome and look forward to opportunities to supporting the draft strategic plan for the 2020-2025 that lays greater emphasis on climate action and improved urban environment, and is before this assembly for deliberations this week. With these words, I end my remarks today. I wish you all the very best and look forward to a very highly successful assembly. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
My sincere gratitude on behalf of all delegations to Madame Suya for your thoughts and provoking statement. May I now invite Governor Ridwan Kamil of West Java, Indonesia, as our thought leader for this morning, reflecting on the obligation of all of us towards a better human settlement, including better urban environment for all. Sir, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to everybody. Jambo habari. Jina languni, my name is Ridwan Kamil. I'm the governor of West Java, Indonesia. And also ex-mayor of the Bandung, the capital city of West Java. 1955, we have a Bandung conference to liberate, send the message of liberation to Asia Africa countries. His Excellency, the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, Her Excellency, the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Madam Maimunah Muhammad Sharif, Her Excellency Ms. Joyce, as Executive Director of United Nations Environmental Program. Today I want to share my experience as ex-mayor and the governor. I have a background in architecture and urban planner. Today I want to talk about happiness in my city. How about making and designing happiness in the urban context. Our meeting today begins a conference on the new urban agenda. The new urban agenda is about improving the quality of life. To me, quality of life is another way of saying happy life. To me, also advanced society is a happy society. As a mayor of Bandung and now the governor of West Java, one of my policy work begin with these questions. How can we make people happier while building infrastructures? How can we make people also as the designer of their own happiness in the city? It is a very inclusive approach, leaving no one behind. Maybe this is not the standard approach to policy making, but does fit the new urban agenda. My passion as a mayor, now as a governor, has been to bring happiness into the policy process. As we meet to prepare the new urban agenda, as we work to improve quality of life, I encourage you all to consider how we as decision makers can plan for. This might sound very vague, this might sound very soft, but it is not. It is evidence-based. It comes from very carefully designed process. When I became a mayor of Bandung, I made happiness as a priority. To turn happiness into policy, we collected data, we asked the people about their life, we surveyed them, we listened to them, and our happiness index measures quality of life in Bandung about 10 dimensions. But surprisingly, 2 dimensions matter most for people in Bandung. Those dimensions were family harmony, number 1, and social interactions. People in harmonious family were happy. People with opportunities for social interaction also were happy. So we began to think, how could a city government improve family harmony in urban context? How could a city government expand social interactions? How could government build trust through technology today? We started by fixing the way we communicate with people. We create series of apps to better communication with people. We have a complaint online. So every day people can complain online, can appreciate or critique the government performance. I created city quick response. Yeah. So within 24 hours, all the problem must be solved or must be answered by the system. I was trained as an architect. I was taught to think about also the soul in the city. Because the city, for me, is not just a container. Infrastructure is a container for people, but it is the people who form the community, injecting the soul to that container. We can build new roads, we can build better buildings, and we should. But we do not need to be limited to just physical infrastructures. We can build also social infrastructures. And after I saw the result of our happiness survey, then I realized as a leader, as a mayor before, that building social infrastructure would have the largest impact on happiness. So I work with the community, with the business, with academics, and with the media to design the programs. We call it the pentahelix approach. The program to improve family harmonies and increase social interactions. Just like concrete infrastructure creates opportunity for people to travel, social infrastructure creates opportunities for people to meet. We view, for example, the street is not just engineering space, channeling vehicle. The street is also a public space. It's a community place. Therefore, we carefully redesign the street, as you see on the slide, as a stage to celebrate identity, to celebrate culture, to celebrate life. We expanded city cultural calendar. We added festival, event. We were collaborating between the government, community, business, and other stakeholders. We transform negative spaces into positive spaces. For example, we transform under the highway into a movie park. So the poor in my city can watch movie for free. No need to go to cinema, just go to under the highway and watch Game of Thrones. And they are very busy during the local soccer team play, usually. The last 5 years, I make the concept for people to walk again in the city. Before I become the mayor, nobody walks the city. Happiness happened only in the shopping mall. The street was very dark, corruption everywhere. But now people walk the city again. They use the sidewalk not only to walk. As Jen Jacob said, street is the biggest public space. Yeah. So people sit, interaction, even some students finish their homeworks on the street because we provide chairs and benches and free Wi-Fi. We also make people walk not only on the sidewalk street level, but also on the elevated walkway, so people can enjoy interaction with business, retails, and connecting the very dense urban through elevated walkway. I'm very proud we reopened and redesigned many public spaces, almost 20 of them, with people-centered design. Yeah. We turning idle, deadly parking space into people urban space. We also closed some car-oriented shopping street into pedestrian street. I remember I got protested by the Association of Retail, and I told them, look, give me 6 months. If your business is down, I reopen your vehicle street. But it turned out to be very successful. The business was up, and the Retail Association came back to me and said, Mr. Mayor, let's close the street forever. Yeah. This is just indication how, as a city leader, we make a change, focusing on the happiness of the people. Slum and squatters also being improved. For example, we bought a house in the slum that doesn't have any public space. We bought a house, tore it down, and make it as community public space. What happened when we did this? The celebration of Angklung happening again. The celebration of so many cultural in slum area becoming very much happening. We also revitalize the riverside slums that also happen in many Asian countries like this into livable area. But it takes a social engineering. It takes, for me, 12 meetings in 15 months to educate, to convince the residents that this is better like what we have now. And now the area become the model of urban river revitalization in Indonesia. We also changed the mindset. I don't like the word transportation. We changed the word transportation into mobility, because moving people is not always about moving by machine vehicle. It's about how you walk, how you use the bike, and other means of very human-centered mobility. It's become also our vision. I also campaign with the kids of the elementary school to reclaim back the pedestrian as a safer streets. The next level of happiness project that we have is changing the mindset of bureaucracy. The usual one was citizens must come to our office to get public service. But the last 5 years we transformed that it is the government bring the service to the citizens' home through the help of technology. For example, we have what we call OMABA programs. It's not Obama, it's OMABA. It's a stand for of bringing food to the malnutritious babies in the poor family in my hometown. The food was made by volunteers from the urban agriculture garden. They cook themselves. Twice a day we send by motorbike, also by housewife volunteers. So this is the beauty of helping people, because the happiest people is the one who helps, not God helps. We also have problems of elderly in my city. When they get older, they feel very lonely. They're very fragile. So we created a program called Senior Citizen Sunday. We ask the young people of the city of Bandung once every week on a Sunday to bring food and bring happiness to the lonely elder citizen in the city. And what happened? The young people learn from the wisdom of the elder citizen, and the older citizen also very happy, got company every Sunday. Again, this is our focus, innovation on happiness, our focus that community is a solution. We use the community as an agent of change, also bring services to the people where they are. This is the pentahelix approach, that the responsibility of change is not belong only to the government, but also everybody in the city. I'm especially proud also we have a program for mental health service for the people. Urban setting created stressful settings. That's why we have our program. We created what we call mobile mental health clinics. If you got stress in my city, just find a Pinky minibus. Inside the Pinky minibus, you have a psychologist, counselor, religious advisor for your problems. 60% is about love issues, 20% about bullies, and the rest is about anything related to urban stress. So this is again to show you the government come to you, not you come to the government. This is the new mindset in my city. The spirit of reaching people where they are. Now we also creating a program, the home Medicare. It's basically for the poor who cannot walk, who cannot afford. Just call 119 numbers and the doctor will come. So as a mayor before, I invested in motorbike for doctors, paying the doctors, the medication also to reach the slum area with this home Medicare program. This is one of the most favorite program service in my city using this concept of mobile service. Also, it is important now we help what we call economic inclusive. We bring food every weekend to the poorest family in the city, brings 1 hour happiness. We now also reaching the microfinance to the poor using the mosque because Indonesia Muslim majority, so we're using the religious center to visit and expand the financial help. And this become also the way to improve the quality and prosperity of the poor people in the city. And they are very happy because again, instead they go to the formal bank, they just go to the mosque, praying. At the end, they got credit help for opening the small business. And also we have now what we call 4.0 digital village. In West Java, we use the IoT to help the rural economy. This is the photo showing that giving the food to fish in my province, just simple using the mobile phone. You press the mobile phone, the sensor within the container receives the message from the mobile phone and projecting food to the fish. And what happened? We harvest the fish before manually only twice a year. Now, because of IoT to the village economy, we harvest the fish 4 times a year, creating double prosperity to my people. Here again, I think at the end of the process, the happiness index of my people jumping from 60% to 87%. So today, 87%, they feel very proud and very happy, even though the quality of infrastructure is not as advanced as developed countries, but my people, I consider the happiest society in Indonesia. I consider this as a clear success, and I think as a governor of 48 million today, I will work to increase happiness to much larger group. I'm overseeing 27 cities now. What happened in Bandung, I will copy and I make it a standard to make a better development to the West Java. We continue to innovate, we continue to listen now. What does this mean to this conference? I want to say that quality of life, please also inserted the discussion about the happiness. The success in increasing happiness happened because we made happiness priority. We measure happiness, we make policy of happiness directly, and we brought stakeholders since the beginning. They are the designer of their own future. The new urban agenda asks us to value quality of life. My proposal to you is please consider this happiness center approach. Identify real needs by listening more to your citizen, now with digital help, figure out what makes them happy, do systematically, gather the data, think carefully how to include as many people as possible, then collaborate with the community to make the happiness happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, to close my statement, I'm very happy to be here at the UN Habitat Assembly. The Assembly represents the opportunity for member states to support enabling institutional environment that allows us to increase our capacities and mandate to achieve the effective implementation of our common goals. We need concrete actions, and we need it now. This is why we call on you to create specific spaces for consultation for local governments and stakeholders, because action lies in the local government. We call on you to enhance the involvement of local governments and stakeholders in the design of the World Urban Forum, to develop a worldwide campaign to promote engagement at the local level, national and regional level in the implementation of this new urban agenda. We call on you to develop a multi-stakeholders and multi-level governance platform on urban development at national level to follow up the implementation of the new urban agenda, to foster dialogues between ministers in the charge of urban development and also the representative of local and regional government. In the spirit of collaboration that traditionally guides our inputs, we offer you our commitments, our local knowledge, the creativity of our communities, and our hopes to leave no one behind. We are ready to shape our global future together, and we remain at your disposal. Please count on us. Thank you. Asante.
Thank you very much, sir, for reminding us the human obligations that we have to each other. Your work inspires other city leaders to make better and happier communities. Thank you very much. I understand before the statement of the Executive Director and our very honored guest, President Uhuru Kenyatta, we will have the pleasure of listening to a very exemplary and dynamic young person and role model to the youth, Ms. Sona Hoverte, and a very unique orchestra after that, the background of which has been distributed to you. Mr. President, I hope you don't mind this very short interlude to prepare us to hear your wise word.
Good morning, Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru, President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Martha Delgado, President of the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly, Madam Maimouna Mohamed Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat and Acting Director General of the UNEP, Madam Joyce Musuya, Acting Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to express my gratitude to be here in front of you this morning to share with you some of my thoughts and my experiences. It's definitely an honor to be here at this very momentous event. My background is from the Gambia, West Africa, and my focus up until this recent times has mostly been focused around rural development. At heart, I'm a musician and artist, what I would call a cultural ambassador, and a representative also of young people in communities like the Gambia. Coming into the question of urban development, I came to ask two main questions. What should successful urbanization look like? And how should it actually be developed sustainably? For me, an underlying factor in both of those is culture, reflecting very much on the previous speaker standing here before. I hold very much the same values at heart. Looking at the ways that we construct Are we effectively reflecting the cultural values and the social values of our communities? Urban development is not just about transporting models that work in foreign countries into a continent like Africa. And in this, I'm speaking mostly for Africa since that's my center. It's about trying to find ways for this urbanization to communicate, to connect, and to represent effectively the cultural values that communities have. How can our construction do that? I've traveled all over the world and I've seen so many different urban expressions. And in Africa, I have found that we are not listening enough to the cultural values of our communities and representing them on the visual and practical levels that we see in urbanization. Africans at heart are communal people. How is that represented in blocks of flats with tiny spaces for communities? Socially and culturally, gender is very different in Africa, in other societies. How does our urban development reflect gender issues? Women do not occupy in many communities the same space as men in public spaces, but is that being taken into account? I saw this actually myself in one of the missions that I did earlier this year, and saw the ineffectiveness again of a public space that by default caters only for men, simply because we have not connected enough with the cultural values of the community that we are trying to support. We need to find innovative ways to include women into this discussion. In the Gambia, for example, women don't speak openly. So it's not a matter of waiting for women to come forward and talk about what they need, because culturally they don't do that. How do we find ways to reach out to those women and find out intrinsically from the cultural aspect inside what they really need and how we will support that in development? Who gives us this information? Is it policymakers or is it the community? And in every aspect that I have seen, it has always been the community that will talk best for what they need and how the structures will support them. In the matter of sustainability, I found that development works in two parts, especially in Africa. We can talk about the material development, but we must talk about the mentality, the non-material development of our people. And this is something that I fight for daily in my country, in Gambia. It's a huge challenge for me to fight the mentality that has been so ingrained for so many years that stops our progression. We see new hospitals built, new schools, universities, beautiful shiny buildings, and yet there is no effort to find out what is actually going on inside those buildings. What is the education that we are giving our children? Are we creating critical thinkers? Are we creating entrepreneurs, people who are change makers? I'm not seeing that consistently in many countries. So it's not just about building buildings. It's about understanding what we are actually doing on the non-material side of development in changing mentality, especially, as I said, in the context of this continent. Many funding opportunities are wasted. I see a lot of money coming into our countries and no effect on the ground. Again, mentality is a huge part to play. I have set up the first academy in the country some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, which is the first cultural academy which is integrated with academic and mainstream education for young people under the age of 18. And this academy is dedicated to creating those critical thinkers, to encouraging young people to think about how they can make that change from the ground upwards, not from the policymakers down. Policies can be set, and yet we don't adhere to them. They don't take root in our communities, again, because we are not focusing on the power of change from the ground up. One 12-year-old student of mine last year spent her 2-week holiday break getting money from her local community following a program that we had at the academy, which was talking about agency in young people. They selected their biggest issues that they faced. They selected the things that they would change if they could change it. And over that 2-week period, she managed to fix all the holes in the road of her community. When she came back to school, the following term, she asked me, I'm 12 years old and I achieved this in 2 weeks. What are all the adults of our community and our country doing year after year? I have seen beautiful examples of, in Kenya actually, last time I was blessed to come here and look at some of the urban development programs, and I saw some effective methods of change, but I saw again that that change started with the people, not with the physical development. I saw them developing the youth, supporting the youth, in understanding that it is you that holds the power to making this change. I saw bins in the street. For me, from the Gambia, seeing bins in the street that people are using is something I don't see. We did a program not so long ago where we actually started to create bins from recycled materials. And one of the reports from one of the young people that I had out there, when she was trying to tell people to not litter the streets and to use the bins that are available, she was met with the feedback, this is Africa. That's our problem, mentality. We also need to pay attention to the assets that we have in our community. We have what are called artists and musicians. I want to rebrand that into calling them cultural ambassadors, because that is what they are and that is what they should be. There is no art form in this world that can center around one person capturing the ears and the attention of hundreds of thousands of people. Why are we not utilizing that? Culture is innate to so many African communities, and yet we are not harnessing it, we are not using it, and we are not bringing it into the political sphere enough. I myself represent change as an artist. I represent culture change. I represent educating our people about how we can develop our culture for a future tomorrow that embraces urban development as well as rural development. We have a lot of artists, young musicians in my village that I'm in, for example, young people singing about rims, their homies, chicks. But meanwhile, the mode of transport that they are using are donkeys and bicycles. So again, how do we solve this disconnect between what we want to represent, what we want to inspire amongst our young people? How do we repair that disconnect? We must embrace these people as cultural ambassadors, educate them, empower them. Let them be the people that can help us to change the mentality of people. Because the only way we can change the mentality of people is definitely from the inside out and not from the outside in. My conclusion is that without the support and agency of the population, the effects of change in policy can only be short-lived. In order to transform material development and policy making from a feel-good, box-ticking mission and statistical venture into solid, sustainable development, we need to invest equal energy and commitment into the changing of mentality by means of education, youth, empowerment, and reforming and harnessing culture for social change. Thank you so much. Asante sana.
Bravo, distinguished delegates. You will agree with me that this has been a very, very impressive presentation by Mrs. Jubarte and these wonderful children. Thank you very much. This is really wonderful. Let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you, Mrs. Jubarte, and thank you, Ghetto Classics. I now have the pleasure of inviting Mrs. Maimouna Mort Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat, to deliver her statement on behalf of our organization. Madam, you are wearing many hats. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Your Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Madam Mata Delgado Peralta, President of the first session of the UN Habitat Assembly, Ms. Joyce Masuya, Acting Executive Director of UN Environment Program, heads of delegations, Your Excellencies, parliamentarian, ambassadors, permanent representative, members of diplomatic corps, representative of UN Habitat partners, the private sector, and civil society organization, distinguished delegates, members of the press, my United Nations colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you to the United Nations office at Nairobi, as they say here, Karibuni Sana, Nairobi. This is a very significant and historic moment for all of us. It is the first ever session of the UN Habitat Assembly. Thanks to your persistence and commitment to multilateralism in general and to sustainable urban development in particular. In December 2018, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution establishing a new governance structure for UN Habitat after 14 long years of discussions. I would like to congratulate and thank you for this achievement and your support to UN Habitat. Thank you very much. The aim of this first assembly is to frame current and emerging challenges of urbanization in the context of an increasingly urbanizing world and propose innovative solutions, including best practices, to make the best of the opportunity of sustainable urban development so as to leave no one and no place behind. It is my sincere hope that you will find the agenda of the Assembly an inspiring one. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as we start our deliberations, I would like to point to three very important opportunities that we should rightly take full advantage, and I would like to also make three proposals and three appeals. First, the first will benefit from well-planned and well-managed cities. I would like to invite all of us to pause for a moment and fully take into account the fact that 70% of the world population is projected to live in urban areas by 2050. What does this mean to our world? It means that persistent and new development problems, including extreme poverty, socioeconomic inequalities, slums, social exclusion and marginalizations, gender-based discrimination, humanitarian crisis, conflicts, air pollution, climate change, and high unemployment will be increasingly concentrated in urban areas. It means that we collectively need to get our growth process and our urban growth process and our cities right to solve or mitigate these problems. This is important as some of these challenges do not recognize national or regional boundaries. Some are planetary in nature, and their negative consequences affect not only us today, but all future generations. What this means is that we need sustainable urbanization to ensure successful and long-term development. Therefore, understanding the key trend in urbanization and how it will likely unfold is crucial to the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It will also help reduce poverty and inequalities in cities and communities. As the world continues to urbanize, sustainable development depends increasingly on the successful management of urban growth, especially in low-income and low-middle-income countries, where the pace of urbanization is projected to the fastest. Many countries will face challenges in meeting the needs of their growing urban populations, including for housing, transportation, energy system, and other infrastructure, as well as for employment and basic services, education, and healthcare. For this reason, I am appealing to you to strongly position sustainable urbanization at the center of your development priorities through deliberate efforts to implement the new urban agenda, strengthening the urban governance structure and institutions, and by adopting integrated sustainable urban development policies and plans, implementing impact-based projects and programs, while strengthening the linkages between urban and rural areas, building on their existing economic, social, and environmental ties. Second, the world needs to leverage innovations to improve living conditions in cities. Our work must be transformational and groundbreaking. This is why the theme of this first assembly is about innovation. Innovation for a better quality of life in cities and communities, and with the sub-theme on accelerated implementation of the new urban agenda towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Cities are incubators of innovation, industry, technology, entrepreneurship, and creativity. They drive national economies by creating prosperity, enhancing social development, and providing employment. The attainment of the SDGs will have to go through cities, and cities will have to continue to drive innovation in cutting-edge ways to achieve a lasting impact in communities and to ensure that no one is left behind as envisaged in the 2030 Agenda. I am appealing to you to adopt policy solutions that carefully promote science, technology, and innovation in fulfilling the promises of 2030 Agenda. We need to embrace new technologies, including using artificial intelligence to support decision-making processes and to efficiently and inclusively deliver basic and social services that transform life in cities. Technological innovation should support not only the rise of smart cities, but also the emergence of livable cities. I am also calling for the development and sharing of environmentally sound technologies to the developing countries. Third, the world needs a resourceful and impact-driven UN habitat. While urbanization is moving the global economy forward, rising inequality and exclusion within cities can derail development progress. Despite wide recognitions and commitment, building inclusive cities remains a challenge. Today, 1 out of 3 urban residents in developing world still live in slums with inadequate services. To make sure that tomorrow's city provide opportunities and better living conditions for all, it is essential to understand that the concept of inclusive cities involve a complex web of multiple spatial, social, and economic factors, which requires multidimensional and integrated solutions. We work with you in planning, implementing, and monitoring these solutions. As you are repositioning sustainable urban development at the center of your national strategies, in UN Habitat, we are committed to work with you as we have done for the past 40 years. These excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me to highlight a few figures that illustrate the impact of UN Habitat's work as a result of our effort between 2014 to 2019. More than 2 million people are benefiting from improved access to water and sanitation. 4 million slum dwellers have been positively impacted by participatory slum upgrading interventions. More than 539 cities in 14 countries are now implementing the City Prosperity Index as a monitoring and policy formulation tool. 375 local governments and 25 national governments are using UN Habitat flagship publications and best practices databases in policy formulation. More than 53 cities in 30 countries has benefited from state-of-the-art planning and design solution, and over 500,000 people in 9 countries have been impacted by work in humanitarian response and reconstruction sector, including through the participatory people's process. In spite of this achievement, we would like to do more in partnering with you as you implement the new urban agenda in view of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. For this reason, we have formulated our new strategic plan 2020 to 2025, which strongly emphasizes UN Habitat's contribution to the implementation of global agendas by focusing on a set of impact-oriented goals on poverty and inequality, prosperity in cities and regions, climate action and urban environment, and urban crisis prevention and response. This plan, your plan, our plan, has been submitted to you for adoption. I am appealing to you to continue working hand in hand with us and to propose ways of achieving greater impacts in cities and communities. We have identified 5 flagship programs which will enable us to implement the strategic plan 2020 to 2035 in a more focused, coherent, and impact-oriented manner. Please join us, work with us in making a difference in cities and communities. Join us in this brand new UN Habitat. We hope to continue to count on your support. Before I conclude, I wish to acknowledge the considerable support and wise counsel we have received over many weeks and months from members of the Committee of Permanent Representatives under the able guidance of His Excellency Ambassador Fernando Coimbra of Brazil. Excellencies, Ambassador Coimbra, on behalf of the UN Habitat family, thank you very much. In our deliberations, our discussion and negotiation, keep one thing in mind. Think of our children and our future generations that we will never meet. Our decision today will have an impact on the future greater than any other previous generations. Life on Earth is at stake. We have the ability and the means to make life better in the smallest village to the biggest city. It is my genuine hope that our effort this week will contribute to a long-term cooperation and decisive actions. Let us find the will to do what is right now. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Madame Moh Sharif, for the very wise words and the assurance that this organization is on its right track and can go nowhere but forward. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor and pleasure to invite His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, a leader who has been an ardent supporter of UN Habitat, to give us his thoughts.
Please be seated. Thank you very much. The President of the UN Habitat Assembly, Madam Marta Delgado, the Executive Director, UN Habitat, and also the Acting DG of UNON, Madam Joyce Musunya, Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Assembly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me at the very onset say it's a great pleasure for me to join you today during this inaugural session of the UN Habitat Assembly, which comes barely 2 months after the 4th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, which was also held here at the United Nations office in Nairobi. Allow me at the very onset to take again this opportunity to welcome you all to Kenya, home to our breathtaking natural beauty, rich wildlife, our capital city, Nairobi, and home to a happy, maybe not as happy as yours, but as happy, and peaceful people. I note that this assembly replaces the UN Governing Council following the endorsement of the resolution by the United Nations General Assembly in December of last year. The resolution established a new governance structure which upgraded UN Habitat status to a universal body and created a 36-member board which will be elected during the session. This new structure is really intended to transform UN Habitat's governance, provide oversight, and enhance UN Habitat's efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of its mandate. As a country, Kenya welcomes this restructuring decision and indeed calls upon the established organs to take up their respective roles in re-engineering the institution and its processes to ensure that it delivers on its core mandate as the lead agency in urbanization and human settlement. Again, I'd like at this stage to congratulate you, Madam Delgado, for your election as the first president of this assembly. I'd also like to congratulate the Executive Director, Ms. Maimuna Moh Sharif, as the Executive Director of Habitat, and indeed to state that I wish you well as you lead this revitalization of UN Habitat, and I can assure you of mine and Kenya's support as you execute your duties. Ladies and gentlemen, the overall theme, innovation for a better quality of life in cities and communities, is quite fitting. In almost all parts of the world, societies are currently ill-prepared to plan effectively for the rapid urbanization that is taking place. Indeed, as a result, many countries, including Kenya, have seen a proliferation of slums and informal settlements, urbanization of poverty, and increased environmental degradation. Addressing these challenges calls for collective international action informed by scientific research and technological innovations. Therefore, the theme, innovation for better quality of life in cities and communities, is quite timely. I am aware that you will be considering and reviewing the strategic plan, activities, work program, and budget, as well as setting policy of UN Habitat during this first assembly. And I encourage you to explore strategic ways of transforming our cities and human settlements into engines of economic growth and development in a sustainable manner. Accelerating the implementation of the new urban agenda, as reflected in the Assembly sub-theme, is urgent and important. I am aware that progress has been slow, largely in part because of financial and institutional constraints at UN Habitat, but also due to member states' inefficient capacity to interpret, implement, and report on progress on urban agenda. To this end, I would wish to call upon the Executive Director, in collaboration with established subsidiary organs, through the new governance structure, to ensure that UN Habitat's organizational capacity and resource base is strengthened to enable it to take up its role as a center of excellence and a global leader in the field of urbanization and human settlements development. This will also enable UN Habitat to effectively deliver on the double mandate entrusted to it as a designated focal point for sustainable urbanization and human settlements. I also call on all of us as stakeholders to support the work of UN Habitat. I call upon the UN Secretary General to consider increasing UN Habitat's regular budget allocation, but also urge member states to increase and honor their voluntary contributions to the UN Habitat Human Settlements Foundation, while at the same time encouraging those in a position to do so to consider increasing non-earmarked funds to be part of the core budget of UN Habitat. In this connection, I wish to assure you that Kenya will remain committed to supporting UN Habitat and its activities. As host to UN Habitat, Kenya has supported the preparations of this meeting in cash and kind, and we shall continue to provide assistance whenever we are in a position to do so. In addition to this, I commit that my government will increase its contribution to UN Habitat and Human Settlements Foundation gains account during our next annual contribution. Kenya will also participate in the pledging session where we will consider additional contributions. With the above measures from all of us, I am confident that under the able stewardship of the Executive Director, we shall together attain the sustainable development goals, and the new urban agenda, and elevate this organization to a higher level. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me just to touch on a little bit of my government's efforts to implement the new urban agenda and related global urban agenda. Kenya has outlined 4 key priorities, which we call the Big Four, for implementation over the next 5 years. These include raising the share of manufacturing sector to 15% of GDP, ensuring all citizens enjoy food security and nutrition, and achieving universal health care coverage, while delivering at least 500,000 affordable housing units in major cities around our country. In support of the affordable housing agenda, we have facilitated the establishment of a mortgage liquidity facility in Kenya, the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, which aims to support the development of the primary and secondary mortgage markets to provide long-term, secure funding to mortgage lenders and increase availability, affordability of mortgage loans, especially to those of low income. We have also embarked on a major infrastructural development, both on major highways and within our major urban areas, that have helped facilitate mobility, improve sanitation, and access to services by our citizens. In the areas of research and technology, Kenya has laid emphasis on innovation as an accelerator of the quality of life for its citizens through promotion and development of entrepreneurship education in all sectors of the economy. The Kenya National Innovation Agency, which was established in 2013 to develop and manage the national innovation system and leverage entrepreneurship towards a self-sustaining economy. And to this end, the country has a number of business incubation centers that include NILAB, iHub, Strathmore University Incubation Center, Kenyatta University, and the Chandaria Incubation Innovation Center. Again, in support of the Paris Agreement on climate change, Kenya is co-leading in the Special Ministerial Roundtable on infrastructure, cities, and local action, together with Turkey and UN Habitat. This is with the support of the governments of Canada, Germany, Mexico, and Singapore, and the Special Envoy's team of the Secretary General's Climate Summit that is scheduled for this evening in preparation for the September summit in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the numerous initiatives we have embarked on, I still note that inadequate shelter and unsustainable human settlements remain a key challenge. And I therefore continue to urge member countries and partners to seize the opportunity during this UN Habitat Assembly to exchange ideas and best practices with a view of identifying practical solutions for improving our cities and human settlements. And I'm confident, indeed, that your interactions during this assembly will enhance our capacity to better confront and deal with urban challenges, and I therefore encourage you to formulate strategies that will revolutionize our institutions and ensure sustainable urban development and human settlements. Finally, as I conclude, for many of our visitors from different parts of the country, I do hope that you will find time to relax and sample some of our rich natural and cultural diversity and enjoy the renewed and renowned hospitality of our Kenyan people. With these few remarks, indeed, I wish each and every one of you very fruitful deliberations, and once again, Karibu Kenya. Thank you.
Mr. President, we feel very honored that despite your very busy schedule, you have always found time not just for UN Habitat, but for the United Nations as a whole, and we are truly, truly grateful for the magnificent attention you have always paid to UN Habitat, even during the most difficult moments of the organization. We thank you very much for sharing your profound words and wisdom with us today. Thank you very much for being present. Distinguished delegates, we are very, very close to 1 o'clock. Given the time, I propose we continue in the afternoon. I would, however, request kindly to you to remain seated while we escort Mr. President out, and the meeting is adjourned and we will be reconvened at 3 p.m. Asante sana.
I request all of us will be upstanding for their excellencies as they take their leave. All of us kindly to remain calm. His Excellency will be taken through a brief tour at the Urban Solution Expo Center. I will request all of us to remain calm and we allow the excellencies to leave. All the heads of delegations and ministers present, you leave after His Excellency, and I'll request that we converge at the stairs for the photo. Let us not follow His Excellency. I'll request also Ms. Sona and the Governor of West Java Province to join their Excellencies. Kindly, Ms. Sona and the Governor of West Java Province to join their Excellencies. It is our privilege and honor as a country to have hosted the first UN Habitat Assembly. Let's appreciate His Excellency as he takes his leave kindly. Ladies and gentlemen, with a lot of applause. I want to repeat once again, we remain calm. As the President is taken through a brief tour, all the heads of delegations and ministers, kindly we converge at the stairs where we'll take a photo with His Excellency. Thank you so much. The rest of us, we can take our seats.